nice. We got really good songs over there by the tree, on the other side of the tree. So,
hello, Bruce. Good to see you, young man. Yeah, good to see you. You're always active, man.
That's right, I be.
So what's up with the son? No, you're as active as anybody I've ever met.
Yes.
good afternoon, everyone.
Sorry,
Buenas
I'm
tardes.
so sorry. Did you go to Maria's event yesterday? No, I didn't know about it. Oh, okay.
I think you're good. Can
She
you
had
move
literally
this
had
bike
funerals,
so we can get
I was
closer?
at one of them.
Thanks.
It's not my bike.
Oh,
No, I didn't know she
okay.
had.
Welcome
Yeah.
to our 6th Caravan Rally,
Yeah, about a month ago.
leading the new Biden administration to stop the blockade in Cuba. Okay. I want to remind everyone that we have a range of views and we are coming here together based on our agreement that we all are in favor of ending the U.S. embargo of the economic blockade of Cuba through normalized relations between the U.S. and Cuba and support for Cuban and all Latino families. This includes ending special restrictions on travel and remittances. As you all know, it is unconscionable, especially during the pandemic, to intentionally block remittances and Cuba's use of global financial institutions. Giving access to dollars is necessary for the important importation of food and medicine. So today, we ask once again President Biden to move forward and resume the opening and begin the process of ending the embargo, ending the severe shortages in food and medicine should be and must be a priority for this administration. Since our founding over 25 years ago, our coalition was called to a special period of hardship in Cuba, and our coalition has stood for principles which includes the following. We support the normalization of relations with Cuba. We oppose any policy of our government designed to increase the misery of the Cuban people in order to obtain political gain. We do not presume to tell the people of Cuba what political or economic system they should adopt. That is their decision on behalf of sovereign nations with the right of self-determination. I want to check with Tom Hansen. Is Tom here today? All right, so we have, we'll catch up with him later. We have a range of speakers today. We have Lex from the Party of Liberation and Socialism. He's going to tell us a little bit about what they're doing and how we are supporting our cause as well.
Thank you everybody for being here, and I especially want to thank those of you who have been here every month since I think April when we started doing this. My name is Lex. I'm with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and today I'm going to talk to you about why the United States must lift the blockade on Cuba, but also about why our strategy must prioritize talking to people and movement building. The capitalist class has bipartisan support for imposing unilateral sanctions on Cuba and justifies this day and night with fabricated propaganda. propaganda against Cuba is so deeply entrenched in the minds of people living in the United States, and this we cannot ignore. Many people think that they may not have the right to speak up because they're not Cuban, or perhaps they've never even been to Cuba. But we must move past this because sanctions are warfare. We must break through the U.S. propaganda no matter the pressure exerted upon us. U.S. propaganda did not stop a mass movement of people from protesting the wars against Vietnam, the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. However, the anti-war movement and the Friends of Latin America here in this country have not been super successful in mobilizing masses of people against U.S. hybrid wars in Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, and other countries that are facing economic sanctions. In fact, they've only increased. The U.S. economic sanctions have grown today to impacting 1/3 of the world's population in 39 different countries. And the objective reality is that sanctions impact everyday people in these countries. Sanctions cause economic crises, hyperinflation, shortages of medicine, food, and building materials. In short, they cause suffering and death. The only way to help Cubans is to lift the blockade. To say that Cuban citizens are poor and impoverished for any other reason than the U.S. blockade is to not look at the facts. We live in a country where we are inundated with the media, mass media that tells us lies, that tells us that it's not the fault of the U.S. government that Cubans are impoverished. That our own government is not to blame. And as a point of comparison, we should look at the masses of people in other Latin American countries whose states have become U.S. puppet states in the name of democracy. They are not any better off either. We need only look at Brazil and Colombia to understand this. Furthermore, there is documented evidence from the United States' own public records that say the intention of these sanctions is to, quote, bring about hunger, desperation, and the overthrow of government. It is so widely understood that sanctions result in poverty and death of everyday people that the vast majority of the world agrees. 184 countries agree that this 60-year blockade should be lifted. Yet it has not been lifted. Internationally, the United States still holds too much power. In this country, we have the obligation to help the Cuban people. We can and should provide material support to the Cubans. But in the long run, we know we can never compete with U.S. capital through charity alone. We will not be successful without a mass movement to demand the end to these brutal, inhumane sanctions. So building the movement is our task, and while some of these conversations may be difficult, many are not. Oppressed people everywhere understand the violence of poverty. The capitalist ruling class makes it so that people can be thrown out of their homes and deprived of food and medicine here in the United States. People in the United States who have suffered the brutality of U.S. domestic policies do not need that much convincing to understand that depriving people of food and medicine internationally is also inhumane and must be stopped. For this reason, we, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, are optimistic that our class, the working class, can change the world and we can get the blockade lifted. Dare to struggle?
Dare to win!
Dare to struggle?
Dare to win!
Cuba sí?
Blockade no!
Cuba sí?
Blockade no!
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Our next two speakers, it's a privilege for all of us and for me to introduce our newly doctors to the city of Milwaukee. Doctors that have been created by the people and the government in Cuba from the ULAM, which is the largest school of medicine in the hemisphere in Latin America. Please give us a round applause for Olive and Alexandra, who are going to tell us a little bit about their experience getting a doctor degree in Cuba.
Buenas tardes a todos y todas. Yo me llamo Alexandra. This is Doctora Oli. I'm Alexandra. This is Dr. Olive Albanese. We are both here from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Originally born and raised. I went to MPS. What I do? MPS. And then, yes, I grew up on the north side, up in Uptown, right off of Center Street. My mother and my sister and boyfriend are here today to support me. Love you guys so much. Very emotional because we just got back like a month ago. And that was an ordeal itself, actually leaving the island. And so I'm very blessed and honored to be here with you all today. Thank you so much for coming out, taking time. Time is very important. And that's all we ask is like time and caring. And so thank you so much that you're already light years ahead of a lot of other people. But I'll let you speak and then I have to.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. We want to thank the Cuban government for giving us a scholarship to study medicine and become doctors, which is pretty much unheard of in this country. And who also they give scholarships to people from all over the world. We went to the largest international medical school in the world. We have friends from Africa, Latin America, Caribbean islands, South Pacific islands, Asia. All over the world. It was truly a blessing and changed our lives forever. And we also want to thank IFCO, Pastors for Peace, which is the organization in Harlem, New York, and they have been working with sending, doing caravans of friendship brigades to Cuba since the time of the special period, and they interviewed us, they recruit students, so if anyone wants to be a doctor, you apply through IFCO. And we want to thank all of you and everyone in Wisconsin who supported us all of these years. It takes a lot of family and community support to get through this. Even though we had a full scholarship, there's a lot of other funds necessary to help us get through this. And so we want to thank all of you, and we want to say that medicine, healthcare is a human right.
Yeah.
And that all human beings deserve respect and dignity, and that should be the basis of healthcare, treating people with respect and dignity, and that's what we learned in Cuba.
Yeah.
So because we both graduated this year that we've been waiting for. It was a 7-year long program. If you would have asked me, back in 2014, I had just graduated from my undergrad at the University of Minnesota. I was like, no, I don't want to do a 7-year medical school program. Like, I just did 4 years. I'm over it. And it was my sister who told me about the program. A recent graduate, Luther Castillo, came and spoke at UWM and through Latin American Solidarity. Through that group, then through my sister, I was able to hear about the program, and so that's what we talk about when we speak of community. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have heard about the program if it wasn't for Yvette, Luther Castillo, through my sister, through UWM, all these people play a part. And so don't think that like you guys coming out tonight isn't doing something, because it's important in someone's journey here or not, or someone that sees this, online, I don't know. But don't underestimate your importance that you have in the revolution, in the struggle, and the role that you can play, and then the change that you can make. And so, so we realized our dream this past year. It seemed impossible, and being realized as we become medical doctors as part of the graduating class of 2021. Shout out to all of our other graduate classmates. We are just 2 recipients of over 200 medical school scholarships granted to the U.S. by the Cuban government and Ministry of Public Health. Cuba's mission has always been and continues to be to save lives, to create health infrastructure, to share its knowledge and human resources internationally, especially in times of need, and to make the world a better place. We see firsthand how the blockade is affecting the lives of everyone in Cuba, from the lack of essential medicines to treat chronic illnesses, which cause more health complications, to a lack of essential supplies in the hospital, for simple procedures to rising prices and long lines for food items. Milwaukee and the U.S. at large would immensely benefit from Cuba's innovative medical and public health knowledge, and Cuba would benefit from Wisconsin's agriculture surpluses. For all these reasons, we are here to fully support the Resolution 2021 RO 2023. There's no better time than now to come together as an international community to share knowledge and resources and to share lives. Viva Cuba! Viva Cuba! Viva la revolución! Amen. Thank you so much. Viva.
Awesome. So, the United States is one of the largest importers of weapons in the world. Cuba not only imports doctors, but they create doctors for the city of Milwaukee. With me next is Pam Richard from Peace Action.
Thank you. I just want to share a little bit of good news. On Thursday, the 23rd, the Milwaukee County Board passed a resolution back from the brink to call to prevent nuclear war, 13-2. So our city officials here get it. We do not need a nuclear war. The amount of spending on nuclear weapons is obscene, immoral, insane. $2 trillion in the next 30 years. They want to replace every single ICBM. So that means we'll have like hundreds more intercontinental ballistic missiles, new submarines, everything in the whole nuclear arsenal. And there's so much fraud and waste and abuse that they can get away with it. For every dollar that a company spends lobbying or making a contribution to a campaign, they get $1,000 in return. They put in $1 million, they get a few billion, or maybe 14 billion that Boeing got in a no-bid contract. So this is such a corrupt, they call it the nuclear weapons enterprise now. It does not belong to this people, this government belongs to the corporations. And they're using it to protect their interests and threaten people all over the world. And according to Dan Ellsberg, even to just threaten the use of nuclear weapons is a use of nuclear weapons. So we know they've done that to Cuba many times. So we are solidly opposed to nuclear weapons and doing everything we can at Peace Action to end this scourge on humanity. The next good thing that happened is after years of lobbying, Glenn Moore voted against the $780 billion to go to the Pentagon. And we were so happy. That took a lot of courage. Very few people in the House of Representatives bucked the system because, you know, that could hurt your group, and Mark Pocan also. So we have 2 people from Wisconsin who voted against this obscene budget. And I'm just really proud of them. And I don't want to take too much time, but we have some good things happening too.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Cuba C, embargo no. Cuba C, blockade no. Next, I wanted to point out that, you know, all of you are contributing to this event as well. And we do have a hat too, the Babbitt hat, which is going to be passing around for any contribution will be greatly, greatly appreciated. And with me next, I have our founding organizer, Ed Heiser, from the Wisconsin Coalition to Normalize Relations with Cuba.
Thank you, Lenore, and thank all of you for coming, for your support in many different ways, for spreading the word, and we have to keep on doing it. So what we decided, we're passing the hat. We haven't done that much in the past. We're going to split 50-50. It's going to go straight to IFCO Pastors for Peace, and the rest will be to support our costs, because our treasury is getting pretty low. So be as generous for that as you can. So there are a couple of things I'd like to share. One is that many of you hopefully have got this sheet, otherwise you're going to get it on October 12th. It's going to be a virtual fundraiser for Pastors for Peace. Pastors for Peace for over 25 years has done civil disobedience trips to Cuba, found treatments, bringing medical and other supplies, and rescuing jail. And it's been a nice area for 2, because of the pandemic, that's not been possible. But the good news is that in November, we're resuming the next trip, and we are doing a fundraiser with them. It's virtual on October 12th, so please check that out and sign up for that if you can. There's a community organizer in Milwaukee for Cooperation Westside years ago. Is going to be the main speaker, along with one or both of the medical students who you just heard from. So thank you, Alex and Olive, for agreeing to be part of that. So that's one thing. There's a sign-up sheet going around somewhere. Clipboard, I don't know where it is. Okay, it's making its way around. So if you haven't signed in, please do that so we can let you know. These caravans are due on the last Sunday of each month, but the next one would be October 31, which some people think is some kind of a hallowed holiday, Halloween. So we will probably do that again, but we want to be able to be in touch with people who have supported the caravans so we can let them know there's a change in plans or anything like that. Presumably we'll be back here October 31st at 1 o'clock, but we can wear your scary outfits or whatever. But you can check on our social media. If you sign up there, we might try and let you know what's going on. And the caravan should start soon, but I will. There's a growing movement to challenge the sanctions. President Biden says he's done with endless wars and he's up with endless diplomacy. But what he didn't mention is the endless sanctions. A third of the world's countries are under sanctions. Cuba's got the record for being the longest and the most comprehensive over 60 years. And that's the most comprehensive is based on the official U.S. government report. And so this movement is enduring and is essential. I've got a few quotes. One of them is that many of you have seen, I hope by now, of these copies of an official state document from 1960 in April, when the U.S. government determined that the Cuban government the revolution was very popular, and the only thing that we could try to do to displace it, which was deemed to be a necessary thing to do, was to and this is a quote, every possible means should be undertaken to weaken the economic life of Cuba, to deny money and supplies to Cuba, to decrease monetary and moral wages, and to bring about hunger, desperation, and overthrow the government. That's been our official policy, kept secret for decades now, in the public for more than 60 years. And when the last president was in, his Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the European diplomats that our goal is to quote starve and quote the island. And unfortunately, President Biden, he pledged he would restore the Obama policies, and that the Trump policies were a failure even for their goal of trying to build an alternative community in Cuba, has done absolutely nothing and is really buttoned down on the Trump super sanctions that we apply. So that's why we are here, why we're trying to communicate to the press and to the public the need to get Biden and the U.S. government to hands off Cuba and to let Cuba go. So I don't spend any more time. I will tell you that in the regional table there's a little cardboard box with howto on top, and we have like 6 different signs. You can take on the car. We've got blue paper mistakes on what's it, but they will take on. So please come and let's load up and we'll hit the road. And we do have a show of etiquette for those of you who have not previously been on, and we'll distribute the warning lights on, etc. So, thank you again, and any questions, let us know.
Thank you. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the rally that we're going to be having in caravan, and we have some kind of logistics that we need to keep in mind. And we have...
Hi y'all, I'm McKenna with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. So I'm going to give you some directions on how to do this caravan. So in a minute here we will disperse you all and you all can go back out to your cars. Our lead car is going to be my comrade Maddie, and it's going to be that truck. It's like a dark blue truck over there. There's a flashing light on it, and a Cuba flag. So they're going to start out first. We're going to line up over there by the stop sign, by that little entrance. So once their car is in place, I'll have you all just kind of show up and put your cars right behind it. We're going to get everybody together before we all disperse out onto the route. The route is pretty simple. It's kind of a giant square. So the things that y'all need to do while you're in your cars, the first thing is you need to put your hazard lights on. The next thing is going to be, I need everyone to be as close to the bumper in front of you as you can, obviously without hitting the car. But you need to stay bumper to bumper with the cars in front of you. The way that we run this, we've done this many times, is the first car in front is going to be the one that runs through does all the traffic lights and all the traffic stops. Y'all are to continue to follow the cars in front of you, even as we go through a stoplight, even as we go through any intersections. We don't want to lose traction with our line. It causes a lot more problems, not only for the cars around us, but for ourselves as well, to try to catch up with the people in front of us. So kind of think of this like a funeral procession, right? The first car in front's the one who does all the directings, everybody else is behind, they're all following the directions as the car in front. So yeah, hazard lights, make sure you're hanging out with the car in front of you. We're gonna take this a very slow pace, so be very easygoing. The most other important thing to do is make a lot of noise. So sit with your hand on the horn. You can make any patterns that you'd like. However, it was told to us a while ago, we all know that like shave and a haircut, like dun 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 dun. Okay, don't do that. In some of the neighborhoods that we're going to go through, that is actually considered offensive. So otherwise, make as much noise as you want. Hoop, holler, I don't really care, blast your horn, that's cool. The intention is we are supposed to be disrupting traffic. We are supposed to be disrupting everybody's days for about 5 minutes because we're drawing attention to what it is that we're trying to fight for and advocate for. So don't worry if you're being obnoxious, that's what we want to do. So again, hazards, Make sure you are bumper to bumper with the cars in front of you. We're gonna go really nice and slow and make a lot of noise. Oh, yes. The bikes are going to be set behind, they're gonna be setting our pace basically. We have a couple people that are on bicycles. They're gonna be behind your lead car. So we're just gonna follow the bikes, at pretty much their pace so that we don't outrun them. I think that's it.
For anybody who needs signs, put in the cars too. We have
Yeah,
one here.
there's a box. There is all different kinds of tape. I highly recommend the blue painter's tape because it won't do anything to your car. But there's a box of signs. Please feel free to put the signs on your car because, again, we're just trying to draw attention to what we're doing here. Is there anything else you want to do? No?
And we have at least 6 different signs, so it's not a problem if you have a sign on one side and a sign in the back and a sign on the top, because so that people know where we're standing.